Everyone who's here braving the weather to come out today to Mass. I really appreciate it. I want to also welcome those of you who are joining on the live stream. I'm not sure if I'm looking at the camera. I don't know where it is, so I'm trying. But I want to thank you for being here as well for this virtually. And I want to thank especially all of our people who were out, especially Father Michael plowing the parking lot so we could have a place to park, and all the people who are out there right now. We can hear the snowblowers clearing the way for us to be here today. Just really want to thank them for their service. It's wonderful that they do that. What does Jesus want for your life? It's a good question for us to ask. What is it that Jesus wants for us? In today's gospel, we hear a beautiful story about these miraculous healings of Jesus, including Simon, Peter, and Andrew, their mother-in-law, Peter's mother-in-law. And it's a beautiful story of healing, but if all we focus on is the healing that Jesus did, we tend to miss the bigger part of the story. And what is it that Jesus wants for us? And there's a subtle clue into what Jesus wants for us in where he does these healings and where he starts his public ministry. He does this in the town of Capernaum. And if you know anything about Hebrew, the Hebrew word for comfort or consolation is Capernaum. So Capernaum literally means the city of healing, city of comfort, city of consolation. Nuham in Hebrew. This is what Jesus wants for us. St. Paul tells us in his letter to the really, really troubled town of Corinth, he tells us, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all consolation." Some translations, it reads comfort. That's ultimately what Jesus wants to give us. It's not just about physical healing. And our lives are not just about delaying death or making sure that we don't suffer any illnesses or things of that nature. That's not what our lives are. That's not what Jesus wants for our lives. Ultimately, Jesus wants us to be at peace. He wants us to be at peace so that we can live our lives in the fullness of what he had envisioned for us, so that we can live our lives the way he wants us to be. And I don't know about you, but I'm really inspired by this story today because I think all of us need a little bit of consolation and comfort. It was a rough 2020. 2021 is not off to a much better start in a lot of ways. It's a difficult time. This is when we need the healing and consolation and comfort more than anything. I mean, just look at our world. I mean, look what's going on around us. I don't have to tell you. You know what it is. We have a global pandemic. We have race riots. We had one of the most bitter election seasons that I've ever seen in my entire life. The country is so divided. We have all kinds of ill things that are going on. We had a riot at the nation's capital. And all of these are signs that people are not experiencing this comfort, this consolation. They're not experiencing it. Our reaction to it, and that's really the most difficult thing about all of these things, is that we see in so many people, and so many of the people we see and encounter in our lives, we see that the message of Christ's comfort and Christ's consolation, it's not coming through. They're not feeling it. This is what Jesus wants to bring us more than anything. Notice how he goes about healing Peter's mother-in-law. He grasps her hand, he helps her up. He doesn't socially distance himself from her, does he? He goes up to her, and he makes sure that she can feel his real presence with her. That's so important. And it's something that we lack so much. You know, in all of the news coverage and everything around the protests in the Capitol, the riot in the Capitol, one of the things that disturbed me the most, and it wasn't just the people that died. That was terrible. And our prayers and good thoughts go out to the family and friends of those people that lost their lives, those people that were injured. One of the most disturbing things that I saw when I looked at that footage was I saw people who had lost their hope. They felt that they were losing someone, a leader that they really supported and they thought was going to be the answer. They thought was going to be the answer for everything. And whatever your political affiliation is, whatever you think of our leaders, past, present, and future, the fact of the matter is that our comfort and consolation cannot come from any civic leader, from anything on this earth. You notice when the apostles are in trouble, when they need healing, when these people in the gospel story need healing, who do they go to? They don't go to the Jewish officials. They don't go to the Roman officials. They go to Jesus. That's where they find their healing. And that's what we have to do as well. It's so difficult. We're consumed so much by a world that so much wants to find an answer in the here and now. And I think of all the things we're experiencing today, and I think about the people of the Old Testament. Are we really any different than them? Are we going through things that they never went through? Look at the story of Job. We heard from Job today. Job knew about suffering. He knew what it was like to go through the most difficult and hard times. You look at the people in the time of Jesus. Disease was everywhere. They had an oppressive Roman government that was stamping out their rights at every turn. They knew what it was like to experience heartache. They knew what it was like to experience discomfort, and they found the solution in one person, Jesus. And that's ultimately what the message of the cross should always remind us of. That's why it's front and center here in our church. That's why it should be front and center in your homes. Because the cross reminds us that Jesus came so that we don't have to go through that. It doesn't mean every aspect of our life is going to be rosy. It doesn't mean we're never going to experience hardship or suffering. Of course we will. But this is a reminder. Whatever we will experience, it's not going to be like that. Jesus came to take that away from us. And it's not, again, just about being removed from physical pain. It's about being at peace. What is the first thing Jesus says when he appears to the apostles after the resurrection? How you doing? No. Peace be with you. They were at one of the lowest points of their lives. They thought Jesus had died. They thought all hope was lost. And he comes to them in their midst and says, peace be with you. I want you to know that I'm here. And everything is going to be okay. It doesn't seem like it all the time. But I am here to give you that comfort and that consolation. See, we distort the meaning of the word comfort sometimes. It doesn't mean we're supposed to be, just happy and rosy all the time. To provide comfort to someone means that they're going through something that's not comfortable, and we're there to provide comfort for them. And that's ultimately what Jesus wants to do for us. But we also have to let him. You notice Jesus doesn't go heal people on his own accord. He doesn't walk into their homes, put his hands on them, and heal them without their asking. We have to want that peace in our life. Do we want peace in our life? I have to wonder sometimes. And I wonder even about myself. Sometimes it's difficult to turn off the news and all the negative stuff that we see. It's difficult to do that. But ultimately, will listening to political commentators fight about who the president's going to be, will that help us? Will that make us feel better? The only thing that will help us and make us whole is the presence of Jesus. That's why you're here today. That's why you're joining us virtually. There's so many things you could be watching on YouTube right now. People are watching the holy sacrifice of the Mass because it's in Jesus that we will experience that healing. It's what we all want. It's why we're here. We may not understand it always. We may not be able to articulate it. That's why we're here. And just as he did so many years ago, Jesus will be present on this altar. And he will sacrifice himself for us so that we do not have to be at unpeace. I don't even know if that's a word. We don't have to be without peace. We have the season of Lent coming up. And it's always a season of, us to give ourselves in sacrifice and repentance. One of the things I challenge us to devote our Lenten journey to this year is to re-experiencing the peace that Jesus wants for us. immersing ourselves in the message of the gospel by any means possible. Coming to Mass, experiencing the sacraments, praying, reading the scriptures. These are the ways we encounter Jesus, and we can be at peace. If we immerse ourselves in Jesus, we will always find peace. If we try to find peace and consolation in things that are not Jesus, we will never be at peace. The apostles knew this very well. That's why they're so devastated when Jesus died. And once he comes back to them, when he shows them that death is not the end, they are so overjoyed and want to take his message out. They care so much about the rest of their people that they want them to understand and experience this peace. And that's what I challenge us to do. Let's go out to this troubled world. Everybody in this room knows someone who's troubled by the events of our country, our world. Someone who stays up at night, who can't sleep at night because they're so worried about things. Everybody in here knows someone like that. Let's take the message of Jesus to them. Let's let them know that here, at our humble church at 96th and Q, there is the presence of Jesus. There is someone who cares so much about them that he gave his life for them so that they don't have to experience unrest and peace and turmoil. So they don't have to experience those hardships of life. Let's tell people about that. People want to be at peace. They just don't know how to get there all the time. For us followers of Christ, the solution is simple. But it's not easy, and that may seem like a contradiction. Jesus is the answer. Conforming ourselves to Jesus, ultimately taking that step to give ourselves ultimately to Jesus, that's tough to do. So many things in the world pull us away. And don't be surprised if on your Lenten journey, if we make that effort to immerse ourselves in Jesus. Don't be surprised if you feel so much more peaceful. If all the turmoil and things going on in the world all of a sudden don't seem to bother you as much. I know I experience that, and I'm not perfect. But I tend to feel at peace with the things that are going on much more than others. And in fact, it's unsettling for people. Maybe some of you have experienced this, where people say, why aren't you panicking? Why aren't you so upset? Do you see what just happened? I am upset. But yet ultimately I know that what's going on is not the end. It's not the final answer. There's only one final answer, and that's Jesus. And so let's commit our Lenten journey to rediscovering the peace that Jesus wants in our life. And that's ultimately what comes out of this story today. In Nahum, the city, Capernaum, the city of peace and comfort, Jesus reaches out and reminds us that that's what he wants for us. And his apostles give us the example of how we are to respond. We are supposed to go to Jesus and to bring others to him as well. That's the ultimate response that we're supposed to have. And so as we continue our Mass today and in the weeks to come, and as we begin our journey into Lent, let us ask the Lord, please help us to receive the peace and healing that you want for our lives, and to help us in whatever way we can to bring that message to those that need it absolutely the most.